Let's work on inverse functions. So what an inverse function does is it flips them. So domain and range get flipped, the whole function gets flipped. Here is the notation for inverse. You see that little -1 on top of the function. That's to determine it's the inverse. The domain and range get flipped when you're talking about inverses. And the function has to be 1 to 1. That just means that for every x, there's a unique y. The y's don't repeat. So the y's and the x's, each of them are matched to a different one. Now here, this is a good one. If this is f of 6 equals 8, what is the inverse of 8? That would be 6. Basically, they flip. The thing here is the same thing. If the inverse is of -5 equals 7, then f of -7 must be -5. If there's a flip. When you have a table, here's the table. This is the x values and these are the f of x values. Remember that inside the parentheses is the 5. So for 5, the answer would be 9. And now here it says, if f of x equals 0, what is x? Okay, so you're looking at the function value to be 0. X would be 6. If the inverse is 9, so if the inverse of 9, you're looking at the y value. The inverse of 9 would be 5. Because when you're talking about inverses, you're looking at f of x. If the inverse is 6, then the answer is 7. Oh wait, the inverse is 6. No, hold on. Let's delete it. Come back here. When the inverse is 6, then you're looking at the x value. Looking at this one, so it will be 0. Use the graph for finding the missing values. F of 0, so 0 is 1. When the function is 0, the x is 4. Let me put it in a different color so you can see I'm talking about that one. When the function is 0, then it's 4 at the x. If the inverse is 0, the inverse of 0, you're looking at the y being 0. If the inverse is 0, this one we are looking at at 4 because they flip. So this one you're looking at the x0, this would be 1. So a way to look at this is like, see how they give me this? It's like inverses, so I can take f on both sides. So I don't have the inverse anymore. Now I have the regular function. So we're looking at the 0 for the y. So that would be that one. When is the function 0? So that would be this one. See, like this one. f inverse of x equals to 0. So when I take the inverse, x equals to f of 0. So here the x value would be 0, so that equals to 1. Hope that's making sense. Here's the table, choose the inverse. You want them to flip completely. So I want the 2 and the 1 to flip, the 6 and the 5, the 9 and the 7, the 11 and the 10, the 16 and the 15 to switch. Find the inverse. To find the inverse, you need to make sure that is 1 to 1 first. Basically, that the x's and the y's don't repeat. When you have functions like this, you need to remember your basic shapes. So like this one, we know it looks like a line. And what you're going to do is you're going to do a horizontal test. You can only cross it once. If it crosses it once, you can find the inverse. If it crosses it more than once, you cannot do the inverse. So like on this one, we can do the inverse. And then what you're going to do is you're going to interchange the x's and the y's. This is like a y. So it would be x equals 5 minus y. We interchange them. And then you're going to solve for your new y. So and then finally you can just do notation. So those are the steps for solving. Like on this one here, the first thing is to change the x's and the y's. So it would be x equals 2y plus 8. And then we're going to solve for y. So minus 8 minus 8 divide by 2. And then that's it. Same thing with this one. Any fractions like this are still 1 to 1. So y equals 1 over, oh, we're switching them. X equals y plus 14. Now we're going to solve for y. So the first thing is to get rid of the fraction. So I'm going to multiply on both sides. And when you multiply it out, it will be x times this, x times that. Now we're solving for y. So I'm going to move the 14x. And then divide by x because I want to leave y by itself. So the inverse will be 1 minus 14x divided by x. For this one, x equals 15 minus the cube root of y. We're solving for y, but I'm going to move the 15 first. Then I am going to do the third power on both sides. I need to get rid of the negative first. Let's get rid of the negative first. That will be negative x plus 15. Then I do the third power on both sides. So then the inverse would be negative x plus 15 to the third power. To determine if two functions are one-to-one, we can use composition, and that's what they're asking you to do here. Put the g inside the f. So if I do that, it'll be x minus 3, and then plus 3. That gives me x. And then the other one, the f goes inside the g. So this goes inside here, x plus 3 minus 3. If you get x's both times, they are inverse of each other. It's called an inverse function of f. When you're trying to find the inverse of the following function. So the inverse, this is a y, so we're going to switch them. And then solve for y. And it looks like that. Now, if I were to graph them, they would be symmetric about the x-axis. Like if I graph this one, I don't think, yeah, it's not, we can graph them in these tiny graphs. But the graphs of the inverses are symmetric around about the line with respect to the line y equals x. So here's a table, find the inverse. We want them to switch. The 3 to be with the 1, the 5 with the 6, the 8 with the 7. So they all switched. We want them to do a flip-flip. This one, similar to the one you did up here. This one is very similar to this one. So I'm going to let you, I would suggest that you pause the video. Hold on, not yet. Okay, pause the video, work it out, and then you can come back and compare your work with ours, with mine. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to get rid of the fraction. So I get x, y plus 13x equals to 1. I'm solving for y, so I'm going to move this one and divide by x. So the inverse of x equals 1 minus 13x over x. So I hope this helps when you're working on this one. If you have any questions, if you encounter any problems or anything that needs more explanation, let me know. And I can do extra videos for you. Just send me some problems and I can always work them out for you.